Well, hello and welcome back. Welcome to my new, most anticipated video of the year, the new music room tour. And as we enter the music room and we go to the back wall of the music room here, this is where I have my record collection. And my records are now displayed and housed in these beautiful shelves that my wife purchased for me to, make this more, of a grown-up looking place rather than, I used to have some old wood crates in here. They didn't look the best, but now I really, really like these shelves. They do a wonderful job to hold all my records. And the good news is, look, I got a little space down here. There's room for improvement. And I've got my new Dave Brubeck 2LP 45. I haven't even opened it up yet. It's good. After I do the room tour, I'm going to crack this open and I'm going to listen to that record for sure. Okay, now here is the seating position. Right here is the center of the room. Halfway in the room, it divides it. So right here is the sweet spot. And now as we come to the front of the listening room, I have some acoustical treatments on the walls, behind the speakers, and on the sides to get the near field reflections. And also, I have some tube traps. You can see the tube trap over here better, I think. This tube trap here, it traps the bass sound so it doesn't cause a standing wave in the corner. Helps with get you better bass. And so now, we'll zoom in here and we'll look at the stereo. I'll describe what I've got up here for my stereo components. Okay, so here we are. Here's a picture of my tone arm. And you can see in the front of the tone arm, there's the Shelter 501 Mark II moving coil cartridge. And that is mounted on the Shelter, or the Origin Live silver tone arm. And if you look to the right and left at the back of the tone arm where the bearings are, you can see what looks to be like fishing weights. Well, you'd be correct. That is because of a Audiogon thread called the Strange Tone Arm Tweak. And that increases your mass in one plane while keeping the mass light in the other plane. And it really improves the performance of that arm, improving the bass and just the overall detail of the retrieval of information from that tone arm is unbelievable. That's due to Tom Lyons. He's the one that created the tweak, and it's on Audiogon, excuse me, called the Strange Tone Arm Tweak. Now, right at the very back of the arm, you see the counterweight, and that's what you call an underslung counterweight. On each side of that, the counterweight is on each side of the tone arm there, and it's below the center line. And that is the best place to put your counterweight, is below the center line of the tone arm. It improves the performance of the tone arm as well, but not to the degree that those fishing weights. That's the biggest improvement I've made in my whole stereo. It's like for $1. It's unbelievable. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And we'll get into now here's the Origin Line turntable. And on to the left of it, you'll see that's the motor control. That's your DC motor over there with the speed control. And you've got a couple little set screws on the side of that where you can adjust the speed of the turntable. And now underneath the turntable here, as we go down a little bit, you can see there's the Gingo Cloud. That is for anti-vibration. That's for vibration control. That helps control the vibrations that come up from the speakers through the speaker stand and could get into the turntable and could vibrate that pickup. It's picking up vibrations. That's how it works. So you don't want any extra vibration getting into your cartridge That's one of the things that makes a real good turntable is its ability to not put vibration in that cartridge unwanted, and that tone arm to not have a resonance and vibrate, and also feed back vibration into the pickup, because it's basically a big microphone on the end there. Whatever vibration it senses, it's going to think that's music, and it's going to put it out to the phono section. And if it's not music, that's going to be called distortion. So as we go down now, we see there's the Jasmine. That's my phono preamp. And I have put some, I've replaced the coupling caps. There's been a lot of, I learned again about this preamp, this phono preamp on AudioGone, and there's a lot of discussion about it, how great it is for the money. It's made in China. It's one of the earlier Chinese. Now, the model they currently make now, they don't make this model anymore. The one he's making now is about 3 times the price of what I paid for this. But the weak point of it was the coupling caps. So I've replaced the coupling caps. In the thread, they usually say to use the Jazden, but I did a lot of research about coupling caps. I read for days about this stuff because, all these capacitors, they have different sounds. And there's been a lot of people that have tested lots and lots of capacitors and have, just like I listen to records and how do they sound? That's what they do. They listen to capacitors. What do they sound like? And so I chose to put the Clarity coupling caps. They're a film capacitor. That's the higher end of your capacitors, and they really live up to their name. Clarity. It brought so much more clarity to the music when I changed those coupling caps out. So now we go down to the next level, and that is my Dodd battery-powered tube amplifier. That's my preamplifier. So because it's battery powered, I don't have to worry about line grunge or power conditioners or anything like that because it's running off of a battery. And what I did is I upgraded those tubes that's in there to the Mullard tube, to the Mullard, it's a, from 1972, it's a military grade tube in there. And it really brings out the voice. I have some other tubes that I can put in there. I might get a little bit more bass, a little bit more shimmer on the cymbals, but that voice just doesn't have the glory it does with those Mullards. Boy, the voice is just so magical with those Mullards, and I really love that. So I've got the Mullards in there. And most people agree that I've got that preamp, that the Mullards are the way to go. So that's how I know about that. Reading on AudioGone again. And then on the bottom, that's my Musical Fidelity AC3R dual mono power amplifier. Now this power amplifier puts out 150 watts per side, and it was rated as Class A in stereophile. And I read stereophile I haven't read it now for the last couple of years because we've been doing all the remodeling over here at the house and I haven't really had time, but I read it for probably 30 years. And in all the time that I read stereophile, that's the only power amp in its price range to ever make Class A. Now, as you can see, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Over here is my speakers. And these are the Martin Logan Sequel 2s. Now I bought these brand new back in about '93. I drove down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, just after I had moved to Jacksonville, Florida, because that was the only place you could buy these speakers, and I had gone online because they didn't have eBay and all that stuff back at that point yet. And so in the Stereophile magazines, they had like a mart in there. You could look at a lot of people, dealers and stuff would sell stuff in there. So I found those in Stereophile. I found the speakers in an advertisement, and I called the fellow, and they got a really good deal on these speakers because somebody that was an audio show in Atlanta, and somebody was going to purchase them, and they were all white. These screens, everything were white at the time when I bought them. And now, I've got a little story about that. This is about when you've got kids, you've got a family. We had 4 children, and when you're raising the kids up in the house, and your stereo is in your living room. And so you know what kids will do? What do kids do? They play, and they're goofing off all the time. So my oldest boy, they were making those paper airplanes, and man, he had those things, man, they were like a supersonic jet, and they were tossing those things all over the place. Well, what happens? One of the paper airplanes goes right in through the hole and punctures the mylar and went right through the speaker. So he's like mortified, so was I, because here's the paper airplane sticking out through the speaker, and they're coming through the other side. So I pulled it out, and of course the speaker still worked fine. For probably about 5 or 6, maybe about 7, 8 years, and finally it stopped. This thing started messing up. So I called Martin Logan, and I was able to get new screens, but they didn't have any white ones in stock, and they were going to be more money anyway. So I said, why don't you just send me the black screens, and I'll just replace the bottom woofer covers. So that's what I've got now. So it's about maybe 7 years ago or so, I've got new screens on here, and I did get the crossovers. I had those rebuilt probably, it's going on 20 years ago. I got the crossovers rebuilt on these things. So that's it for the room tour and the stereo, what I'm using for my stereo and my speakers. I do have one other little story. And that's why I've got the Musical Fidelity power amp. I was using an amplifier, a preamp and a power amp that were made in Canada, and it was 100 watts a side. Now these speakers, they need more than that, but that's about the minimum you can use, because these Martin Logans, electrostatics, they need a lot of power and they need a big room. If you don't have that, you can't use these, okay? So I've actually considered maybe getting a little bit smaller speaker in this room, but I've got them working, they work fine. So I don't have to spend more money and get something else. But my youngest boy, Daniel, okay, he was about 3 at the time. And we used to have a big entertainment unit here. And I had my turntable up in the top and the preamp up in there, and the amplifier underneath. So it was way up high, away from all the kids, couldn't get at it. And so, we didn't have a remote control or anything for, a hi-fi preamp, didn't have a remote control. I have a remote control for the Dodd now, but I didn't back then. So my wife is over in the kitchen, she's cooking supper. So Daniel, he gets a chair out, he pushes it in front of the stereo, he goes up to the preamp, he knows where the volume control is, he takes that volume and he pins it. So what do you think happened? Yeah, you'll know what happened. These speakers ate the amp, smoked it. Yeah, you're not going to blow these up. They will take everything you got, and if you're not good enough, you die. So it's one of those things. This is kind of a good thing. I got a new power amp. So thanks for watching the video, and hope you all enjoyed it.